is Takaichi, not only at the front of the pack, but like seems to be the firebrand, seems to be the one that has ideas, that is strong, that is going to move. It's a very interesting subversion of what you would expect, I think, from the stereotype.
Well, given that the LDP has provided virtually all of Japan's prime ministers back to 1955, I mean, it was going to have to be someone in the LDP. The odds were better than not. The thing about the LDP, the LDP as of now, among its Diet members, fewer than 10% are women. It is still a party that is very dominated by men. I mean, the other unusual thing about her, she really comes from a relatively modest background. She's not a hereditary politician. She's not a dynastic politician. She's not, the relative grandchild of a prime minister or other senior politician. I mean, she really is unusual in that way, in that she came from pretty humble background. Her parents basically said, like, we don't want you even, she could have gone to elite school in Tokyo, and her parents told her not to, stay closer to home, well-known college or anything like that. But she, really clawed her way into politics on her own kind of strength and her own ambition. You can't really tell the story of her career, though, without her relationship with Abe. Abe really was her patron. And the first time she became a cabinet minister was when he became prime minister for the first time in 2006. She was really part of his circle of loyalists. She was very devoted to him and supported him, and he in turn helped her advance. And for men or women, you need someone who is helping you. But I think for a woman, particularly in the period in which her career has unfolded, I mean, it's hard to imagine it happening in the absence of a powerful patron like Abe, particularly because she's not a hereditary politician. I mean, when you look at like one of the other more prominent female Japanese politicians, Obuchi Yuko, okay, her father was a prime minister. That certainly helped her. Not having those resources, she, needed support. And so, she was loyal to Abe, and Abe repaid that loyalty in return. And it certainly helped her be in a position for receded, first as he stepped back from the premiership, and then as he was assassinated in 2022. I mean, she was well positioned to emerge as the leader of that part of them, trusted by him, close to him. And then when she ran for the leadership for the first time in 2021, basically having him as her campaign manager, that went a long way, I think, to position her as the heir to his movement versus some of the other maybe male contenders.
When you were first talking, it sort of sounded like maybe there was a Thatcher comparison to be made, but I don't know. With the Abe patronship, it doesn't sound like there is. And am I also reading you correct that we shouldn't read into her election as any kind of fundamental change in like gender inside of Japan itself? She's more of an exception than she is some kind of shattering of a glass ceiling. Am I being too cynical?
It's a meaningful achievement, but clearly it was something that I don't want to downplay her own political talents. I think she has a genuinely strong, devoted following. And it made this possible that she really does have real supporters on the grassroots who, really genuinely are affectionate for her, particularly, like you look at these like rallies she has. I mean, she really has, I think, a very strong following. I think she has an extraordinary work ethic. This is something which probably actually is like a Thatcher comparison that maybe is apt. There's a sense that she's going to out-hustle her opponents. She's going to work harder than them. She's willing to put in the hours. Ishiba, after she won, like teased her, making sure she remembers work-life balance. Like, but she's like has real ability. I think she has extraordinary command of policy details. I mean, you watch her give these press conferences, and it's just her ability to just sort of reel off facts almost without coming up for air. When I watch them, I mean, you just realize like, wow, she is just like going on and on. I mean, really knows the issues extraordinarily well. So is formidable in her own right. And I want to stress that, this is not just like, oh, well, she was just given this thing and didn't earn it. I mean, she has real talents. And so essentially she was given the opportunity because she had those talents. If she didn't have the talents, I don't think she gets where she is now. So I want to make sure that is clear. LDP has only 10% of its national lawmakers are women. So there's some work to do just because, it's a parliamentary system. So how do you get ahead? I mean, you have to serve the time, be around, you have to climb the ladder. And if you're not getting on the ladder in the first place, that's very hard to do. And I think one thing she is going to do is try to help women climb the ladder. So when you look at who's in both cabinet and sub-cabinet positions in her government, of those 38 women in the Diet from the LDP, more than 25% of them are now in government posts of one sort or another. So I think she really is trying to cultivate kind of the next generation of female leaders within the LDP and give them those opportunities to move up. Whether it's the glass ceiling has been shattered or just maybe it's the wrong metaphor and it just has the more doors are opened or the bar is lower or whatever it is. I mean, I think
that's a great point. More doors are open for women than ever before in Japanese politics, and I mean they weren't open at all. So I mean it's something that's pretty remarkable.
Yeah, I mean look, she have the first female finance minister. Haven't had a female finance minister before. So it's things, there are opportunities, and I think she's working on creating those opportunities. She has generally, during this leadership campaign, she talked it up a little more, but in the past has generally not tried to trying to get a lot of political credit out of being a candidate to become the first female prime minister. It was generally, she did not want to win on that basis. She wanted to win because of her ideas and her talents and her skills. Ultimately, that is why she won. I don't think she won necessarily because people were drawn to vote for her just because she'd be the first female prime minister. But that did seem to be played up a little more during this leadership campaign.
One of the interesting things, or one of the things that makes her different also, is that she's coming into power with far higher approval ratings than any of her predecessors. So, I mean, maybe Japanese politics is still, maybe the LDP can't command majorities and things like that, but she at least seems to have a honeymoon period that she's going to walk into. To what do you ascribe that? And do you think, is there any staying power to that? When Abe was assassinated, I wondered if there wasn't going to be some kind of groundswell of support for his policies that never really materialized. Like it didn't really move things forward. Japan just continued in this direction. But she seems to have a bigger mandate than anybody that preceded her, aside from Abe, or at least, anybody who has tried to do anything in Japanese politics since Abe. So can she do anything with that? Is she stuck with the LDP not having the same broad appeal that it did before? Like, how do you think that plays into her next moves?
I mean, it's certainly better to start with higher approval ratings than not. Off the bat, it's a better position to be in than where her immediate predecessors were starting from. I think there's a few factors to that. I think people are gratified to see the first female prime minister. And so I think there's a bit of a halo effect from being the first female prime minister in this historic moment for Japan. The thing we are seeing is young voters are drawn to her. On Blue Sky this morning, I was going back and forth with some other Japan politics watchers just trying to, why are we seeing this? I mean, and because it's not just why are we seeing such strong support from the young for her, like in the Yomiuri Shimbun poll that came out yesterday, I mean, her support from voters under 40 is 80%. Ishiba's was 15%. So that's weird and unusual, but the same voters, those same under 40 voters are the same voters who, in July were voting for populist right party Sanseito, the same voters who are voting for the populist right Democratic Party for the People. I mean, so is it that young voters just are more right wing? Is it young voters are just more online? This sort of culture, sort of right wing culture online. And so there's sort of a bent to the information they're receiving about politics online? Is it that there might be another more of like a vibes rather than ideology way of thinking about it, where, Abe had pretty robust support from the young when he was prime minister. And, I thought some of it was Abenomics was good for young people. If you were leaving school and entering the job market, those were pretty good years to be doing that. Wages were finally going up. The jobs to the worker to jobs ratio was very favorable for workers. You had your pick of job. So those were, not bad years to be a young person, but also, to what extent was it voters respond to energetic leadership? And I think it also explained why Koizumi was as popular as he was back in the day. It's not even so much about what is this leader actually saying they're going to do, but a leader who presents vigor, a leader who presents energy, a leader who is speaking directly to the people who, you can go see and they have energy at their rallies. Like that, people respond to that. And I think young voters in particular seem to be responding to that. It's probably some mix of all the above. Some of it probably is, young people are maybe more conservative, and we've seen this maybe in other democracies. But I think in contrast to Ishiba, in contrast to Kishida, she looks more energetic. She looks like someone who is going to provide dynamic leadership. It is not just going to be, old LDP just like sitting here, twiddling their thumbs, not really doing anything. And so it's possible that a response to that as much as anything else. I mean, and the last thing, actually, when we look, Abe was always more popular than his policies. His approval ratings were pretty robust kind of throughout his tenure, but he generally pulled better than the things that he wanted to do. for Takaichi, I mean, that maybe is a cautionary tale, not to interpret high approval ratings as necessarily a mandate to do whatever you want. And that was something I think Abe was always sort of careful about, and sort of picking his battles and knowing when to push ahead and when to compromise and when to pull back. And that's the secret to longevity in some ways, is being able to read those opportunities and have an ability to sort of intuit where the public's mood is.